Hello, and welcome to Holistic Emails, Email and More, Series 4, a Q&A with. I'm your host, Skip Federa, and we are back with our best season yet. In addition to fresh takes on persuasive email design, experimentation, and reporting, we're also going to be tackling how to build out your tech stack, win-back campaigns, and today's topic, recession-proof email marketing. For those of you who are new to the show, this is really your show. We bring the experts, but it's your questions that drives the conversation forward. It's unscripted, unrehearsed, and based on what's been going on backstage, it's going to be a whole lot of fun, if not maybe a little bit of a train wreck. Right. So let me do some of the admin bits, get those out of the way. So as I said, we've got a great show lined up for you today. We're going to explore proven strategies and tactics for creating successful email marketing campaigns that are designed to sail through the economic headwinds. Our brilliant guests will share their insights and expertise on topics such as list building, segmentation, content creation, automation, and whatever you want to discuss if you get your questions in the Q&A tab. You will learn how to get the most out of your email marketing during the hard times so that you are set up to capitalize when the boom times return. But before we go any further, we should take a moment to thank our generous sponsors. So this series is brought to you by our platinum sponsor, RPE Origin, and our silver sponsor, Bloomreach. A big thank you from all of us to everybody at those two great organizations for making this series possible. Now, we will have a new episode about every month-ish. But if you can't wait that long, check out Holistic Email's website. There you can catch up on every episode from seasons 1 to 3. You can't binge watch season 4. That's not the way we're doing it. You're going to have to wait till next month to get episode 2. But there's lots of great content at the site that you can catch up on at your leisure, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on. So I said we put together a brilliant panel today, and here they are. We've got Jennifer Hoff, who is formerly of ASICS, but open to new opportunities if anybody's hiring. We've got Tom Rickards, Tom, and he's the Customer Success Manager Partner at Bloomreach, one of our lovely sponsors. We've also got Adam Perslow, the CEO of the Loyalty Company, and for this episode, and I think this is a first for us, we've got not one, but 2 award-winning marketers with us. The first is Scott Cohen, Director of CRM Lead Conversion at Small Direct Hub. And with me, as always, is best-selling author and award-winning thought leader, Kath Pay of Holistic Email Marketing. How's everybody doing?
Very good.
Great.
Doing well.
Very good.
Well done. All right, everybody. So there are still no questions in the Q&A tab over there, but please get your questions in there. So the marketing budget is usually one of the first things to get cut when revenues decrease. Now, from the finance team's point of view, this makes perfect sense. The 3 biggest line items in pretty much any company's budget are staff salaries, rent, and marketing. Well, office rental agreements are signed for years and are difficult and expensive to break. And in many countries, it is time-consuming and expensive to reduce salary costs. So marketing is a great place to look for those cost savings. However, in general, reducing or cutting marketing during a recession may not be the best long-term strategy for a business. In fact, some studies have shown that businesses that continue to invest in marketing during a recession can actually improve their market position and gain a competitive advantage when the economy recovers. And there's loads of great case studies out there that show this very thing. So by maintaining your marketing efforts, businesses can also build brand loyalty and trust with customers, which can lead to increased sales and customer retention in the long run. Unfortunately, for many of us, as email marketers, we're not asked whether the marketing budget should be cut. Instead, we are asked to implement the cuts decided by somebody further up the food chain, which brings us to our conversation today. So I'm going to kick it off. Usually I pick on somebody. Today I'm going to pick on Adam. Adam, to go first. How can email marketing help businesses during a recession?
I mean, I think we've already practiced it in what we did at COVID. It's very similar. Obviously, people don't have disposable income. There's less to go around. I think the key is for businesses to really sort of push on with engagement, push on with speaking to their customers, being fully aware that people aren't going to go out as much, people aren't going to shop as much, people aren't going to spend as much. So I think the key is really keeping people engaged. I mean, my background's always been hospitality and restaurants, as we all know. And again, during COVID, it was a very similar situation where you just wanted to make sure that people were warm to your restaurants, people kept engaged, and people knew you were there when they were ready to go back out again. It's a very similar situation now. People are being very conscious on what they spend. People are being very careful what they spend. So if people are going out 1 or 2 times per month, or once a year even, being that restaurant or that venue that they go to is so important. So speaking to them in a way that is just informative, keeping them warm with your brand, keeping them engaged with your brand, maybe giving them something to try. I mean, one of our clients recently has done a nice piece with just basically, here's £10, go and spend it. We're all aware that there's difficult times ahead. We're all aware that we haven't got the money that we may have had in the past. So here's a little something from us. If you want to use it for a drink, if you want to use it for a coffee, if you want to use it for your one time a year that you may be going out in the next 12 months, then please use it for that. So the important thing is really just keeping people there and reminding them that you're there for them.
Yeah.
And I just want to follow up on that really quickly, because you also touch on something there, that businesses are really in a wedge, and hospitality businesses are really in caught between that rock and that hard place. Scott, I can imagine Small Direct Club is as well, in that on the one hand, the business's costs are going up, right? Energy costs more, food costs more, everything costs more. At the same time, demand is going down because people aren't coming out to the restaurant. Where's the trade-off there on, I'll actually suck it up on the margin just to get people in the door? Like, how do you balance that? And as an email marketer, how do you address that?
So segmentation and targeting is really the way that we're approaching it. So go to the right people, go to the people who may have lapsed, who may not have been with you for a while, that are more likely to want to come and revisit. Approach them first, and then we're dealing with people as they get into people that are slightly warmer. So being very careful with our targets, making sure that we're not sending a blanket amount of money, and we're not suddenly going to drive a load of people in with a voucher or whatever it may be, doing it in smaller chunks. So this campaign I mentioned is currently sending to about 2,500-3,000 people per day, monitoring the uptake, making sure that the margin isn't squeezed too much, because if everybody comes in on the promotion or with the offer, then suddenly there's going to be a margin squeeze and there's going to be a problem. But we're monitoring it daily just to say, look, let's make sure we get people in the door, but ultimately we've got to make sure that it's profitable for the business. So closely monitoring things, reporting, very important in everything that we've been doing, while still trying to get people in, and obviously make sure the business is profitable.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in, it just like with COVID, to your point, Adam, it puts the bullseye on the email channel because we're cheap, right? Yeah. Like acquisition cost is always a concern. And in a recession, it's really a concern because all the efficiencies of a good market go away. So the onus becomes on us as email marketers to push volume, to push, retention, all those pieces like that. And so it not necessarily that like best practices change or things of that sort, but you're under the microscope now of like, well, you're the channel we can use because it costs, fractions of a penny to send, where, your cost per lead is way high at this time. But it also stretches, it also, we are the channel that can do nurturing, and like the life cycle, the purchase cycle becomes longer during recessions as well, right? Because you don't have that, or you have to save up for it, things like that. So there are a lot of nuances that like the CMO will turn around and go, so what do you got? And you have to practice like the balance of patience, because it'll take longer, but also like that immediate return.
But you know, one thing
absolutely.
that they would grasp onto is, yes, you know, email is one of the most cost-effective channels, but also because it is one of only what, so you've got SMS, that's a push channel, you've got app, push app, right? And then you've got email, and email is the original one, and it's started for sure. So it's that push channel, and you know, to Adam's point, that means that we can be nudging them, gently nudging them, so that when they are in that position, when they're in the right frame of mind, or they've got the money in the wallet, or whatever, that's when they will do it. And we just need to be in their inbox with regularity, with great deals, relevancy, you know, so, you know, the relevant content and offers and all the rest of it. And also doing things like what we did in COVID. And I'm not going to say that I think that we've forgotten it, because I don't think we have completely, but I do think that we kind of went backwards and did a little bit BAU. We forgot to continue with the empathy, continue with, you know, that kind of customer-centric focus on the end recipient. We are now grasping, or sort of like grappling so much with how we're going to meet our KPIs, how we're going to do this, how we're going to do that. We're thinking so much more about the brand and less about the actual consumer. So, you know, and then, so that nudge effect is really only going to be working if you're very much consumer focused or customer focused rather than brand focused. Because as I always say, if you focus on the customer, you help them to achieve their goals, what's going to happen? Your goal's going to get achieved as well. So it pays off.
To piggyback
That's a
off
great
of that.
segue.
Oh, I was gonna say,
Everybody.
I know. I just want to throw in a couple of things. So to piggyback off of that too, now would be a really great time to start gathering first-party, zero-party data on your consumers too, to understand why they're making purchases, to get to know them better. When I speak about this topic, I like to say going beyond the transaction. So why are these consumers purchasing? Who are they? It's not just enough to take a look at your transactional, your behavioral data. You really want to try to get to know these people on a more personal basis. So now is a good time to try and gather that information, to understand who they are, kind of what their world is like right now, and keep them in mind and keep them engaged, and make sure with the data you're collecting, you're sending out relevant communications.
Yeah, a stat that's been drilled into me since I was a kind of very junior salesperson starting out about kind of 13 or so years ago is the ROI on email is massive. So I think then it was for something like every £1 you spend, it was 20 that you made a return on. I actually did a quick Google a second ago, and in 2020 it's £42. That's more than doubled in the time that I've been working in the industry, which is crazy. So if you need to convince any higher powers, there's your power. What you're saying about understanding the customer is absolutely everything. Email gives you the kind of power of, if someone clicks on an email or then they land on the website, now suddenly everything has changed with that customer. You need to be able to respond to that segment, immediately in real time. So that previously that customer might have been, ready to get a win back campaign or something, but now you know that they're engaged, they've clicked on a couple of products, they're interested, they haven't bought anything yet. Okay, well now we need to treat them totally different. You need to know about that straight away. So yeah, how you're treating that data is everything.
Now, I can imagine, sorry, Skip, I'm not taking over your role, but, this question was going through my mind. I can imagine there's some, people sitting there listening to us, and they're saying, well, what you're saying makes sense, and we need more smarts, and we need to spend more time identifying, looking at the data, analyzing it, segmenting correctly, working, testing, optimizing, everything. All the things that we've actually got upcoming in Email and More season 4, right? Because we kind of pitched it around this.
Stay with us, folks. We'll get there sometime this year.
So, yeah. Thinking about all of those things and going, but wait on, we've just lost X percentage of staff, or I'm the only one that's left now, and we had a team of 4, or we had a team of 20, and now we've got a team of 3. Whatever the story is, right? So they're kind of, there's more pressure and everything. But
So Kath, Kath, can I just jump in there because I do want to get back to that point about lost staff. We've got a couple of questions that have come in on the chat. So Megan wants to get back to what you were talking about, which is sorry, that was not Megan, that was Susie. With the regular comms, though, that are always nudging, do you have to worry about any kind of impact on deliverability? So how much is too much is, I think, where Susie's trying to get with that.
That's it. This is where the smarts come into it. This is where you are testing. This is where you are monitoring. This is like what Adam was saying. He's not just doing it for the deliverability, sake, but he's doing it for the business sake to see that they get the balance right. And it's the same sort of thing. You can't just say, okay, we're just going to do this and blankly go and do it, and then fingers crossed. You have to be understanding your audience, understanding the value that you're giving them, and working out what your frequency is. But having said that, in my 24 years experience in email marketing, I've done, I don't know how many audits, a lot. I've found that the majority are leaving money on the table because they're not doing it often enough. They're not sending often enough. And that's because there is that kind of that fear happening, right? So, and I'm not saying, forget that fear and just go and blast and send out and everything. I'm not saying that. Again, it's about you being smart and working out what is going to be the best one. But don't refrain or restrain yourself just based on fear, because then you could be making your life a lot harder, because you as a marketer could actually be, hitting your KPIs with a little bit more frequency. We don't know. But
well, and the other thing to remember is that every email you send out. Your recipients don't know every email they receive.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're sending a lot. But if you've ever had a 4-year-old, and you're sitting there going, keep quiet, stop asking me why. Well, they don't know that frequency is too high. So it's that was a horrible analogy. Move past that. But you know what you're sending, and it feels like a lot to you, but it may not feel like a lot to your recipients.
Well, and that's a really one-to-one thing, Skip, right? It's really like you get people complain, you send me too many emails, and then to your point, you get the other people go, I don't remember you sending me anything. Yeah. So it's like what's too much for one person isn't enough for another person. So you're not going to please everybody.
Yeah.
So be smart, but also, please your bosses.
I think what's been quite useful for us in this one as well was this client that I mentioned sending the relatively small amount of emails. They were hyper personalized, so drew reference to membership numbers and their name, and as you usually would. But just because it was a smaller number, deliverability was great. Open rate was 60% because it made them feel like we were talking to them, and because of that, it was something personal for them. Here you go, click this. There's something for you. As Kath said, we've sometimes forgotten to think about the customer rather than the business, and this was very sort of personal, very personalized, and it saw the results. So as long as I think we're clever with segments and personalization, then as Megan sort of asked, I don't think deliverability will really be an issue.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point. It's treating people differently. I think from conversations I've had with clients, like you were saying, Kath, there's often that sort of resistance of, well, we send our weekly newsletter, that's enough, we're scared of sending more often than that. Well, how many of those people actually open that email? Probably, if you're lucky, 15-20%, and you're still sending to the other 80% that aren't opening it. To come back to the question about deliverability, that's going to be the problem, rather than actually, sending a hyper-personalized message that says, here's information about the product that you were just looking at. That's going to be far more engaging. That's going to get a better response rate. The more of those that you're sending are what's going to be better for deliverability and for your bottom line, ultimately, because more people are going to buy from it.
Yeah, and I would also say, this was touched upon a little while ago, is taking a look at now with the looming recession, what your purchase cycle is going to be. And if you had sunset policies or other things in place, just taking into account that perhaps because of the, just the lack of funds, or people are being more stringent on what they're spending on, making sure that you're allowing that extra time and space. So if you need to update some of your automations or anything like that, taking into consideration that it's going to be a longer purchase cycle, and then just taking a look at your overall promotions too. I mean, I get maybe not sending enough, but there's one retailer that I have been getting just, and I understand they're sending it because they need sales, but it has been ridiculous the amount of emails that I've been getting from this one retailer after not hearing from them for a while. So, just take a look at your overall marketing, taking a look at your purchase journey, updating automations where necessary would be something else I'd take a look at.
Yeah. And what I tried to get at before was basically try and work smart. So try and use as much tech as you can, which is going to help you to work smart. So in the deliverability case, make sure you've got a deliverability tool, monetary tool in place. If you're wanting to be analyzing data, make sure that your tech platform, or hopefully your tech platform, if it does offer that, you use that and it can do some lovely segmentation and hyper-personalization and everything for you, so that you're making sure that you're, utilizing the features that you have at hand.
Cool. Excellent thoughts. I want to move away from deliverability, and because we could rabbit hole into that for the better part of next week. Want to go back to a question that this one did come from Megan, and I like the way this is a glass half full question. I love this. What are some of the most innovative campaigns anyone here has executed themselves, or Tom, Adam, Kath, on behalf of clients? That are improving engagement, but do not include offers or discounts?
You go.
Jennifer, go.
Sure. Okay. So I have worked both on the agency side and the brand side, but I will say, in terms of what we were doing at A6, and we did this back in the day when I was at Kohl's too, sending out some sort of plea for engagement, or not plea, but just sending out, when you have space on the calendar, to send out some type of engaging campaign. And so when I was at A6, we used a third-party vendor called Jebbit, and we were able to create an engaging experience with our consumer and also collect zero-party, first-party data at the same time. So whether this was, we did a what type of runner are you campaign. And so, we took the users through a quiz. And then at the end of it, we were able to get different data points on them that we could then further segmentation on. There was no promotion involved. You'll find that, a lot of times your loyal subscribers or people that just want to be heard will provide information for you or do things for you without having to incentivize them with some sort of offer. So those campaigns actually performed really well for us. I will tell you that we were a very small team at A6, and we had to serve everybody across the globe. And so this vendor was really able to help us kind of create these campaigns at scale. And a lot of them you can create more evergreen, so you can use them whenever you would like. But that, again, like whether it's sweepstakes, whether you're creating some sort of quiz, even one question, a lot of times what we would get at A6, being better known for running shoes, is people would purchase running shoes, but then at A6, we would assume, well, you're purchasing running shoes, you must want to go train for a marathon. And actually, one of these campaigns that we sent out, we found out that about 30% of the people that were part of this campaign actually had no interest in running or racing at all. So if we we're blind to that and pushing just marathon training and all this stuff down your throat, we're going to turn you off. So it was really insightful and really helped us to advance our segmentation.
Yeah, we had something fairly similar as well to what Jennifer's talking about. We work with a clothing brand, a clothing retailer, and they were doing too much. They were sending too many emails. Everything was buy, and they were seeing a serious drop of people opening their emails and engagement rates, and a large number of unsubscribes. So we did a nice 4-week campaign that was basically not selling anything. So we took the sales emails away. It was a great brand, had a really lovely story around it, had been around 50, 60 years, invented a waterproof zip, had lots of things to say. And we basically did a 4-week campaign. The first one was just about the sort of where it began. And then the next one was kind of how it progressed. And then it brought it a series that brought it up to today. And they actually saw sales from those emails that weren't trying to sell much better than the emails that we're trying to sell, which I think you can only do once or twice. But it was a really nice example of when, people are so used to being bombarded and they send 2 or 3 emails a week of buy, there's an offer, 50%, you get this free. And people love the brand. It's a brand that people are very loyal to. And this was really successful. And again, unsubscribes were low, engagement was high, and that really then put them on the way to better open rates and better engagement on their emails.
Yeah, I mean they're great, and and I was talking about the tech beforehand, but not everyone always has tech, right? Not everyone has budget for new tech as well, as wonderful as it would be, and that there are some amazing tech for these innovative kind of campaigns. So if we just call upon ourselves, so we can go and do something, and I like to do it with copy, right? And I've got nothing to do with this brand at all. I just absolutely adore it, and I love and I read every single email they send me. Who gives a crap, right? Just their copy is so innovative, and it's great. It's educational. They don't have offers in it, right? They're not going to put offers on their toilet paper. They're really using the channel as that nudge, as that little reminder. Hey, listen, when you're wanting to buy toilet paper, remember us, right? So, and it works so well. Then we've got a client, Canadips, right? And they're small brand, very niche audience as well. And, they don't have lots of spare budget going around for different tech. So we went, okay, well, let's try and make the most of your low-hanging fruit. And so what we did is we ended up doing an A/B split test on one of their automations, a browse abandonment automation. And we simply tested, sort of like calling it out and saying, listen, we saw that you were looking at this item and then you've forgotten about it type thing, so we sort of called it out versus a serendipitous one. And the results were amazing. We learned something about our audience. And now we're also doing another one on that for a subscribe but not purchase as well. And we're using more perfunctory copy versus more emotional copy as well. Because they've subscribed but they've never ever purchased. So we want to know what's going to make them tick, right? So I know it's not, cool, it's not exciting and like that, but it delivers the results. And it just means that, you're thinking outside the box and you're also very much focused on your audience. And the beauty about this is that, as with the others too, you're going to get to know some insights about your audience. So don't always think that innovation has to be new tech or has to be really, really, wow, this is a fantastic, one-off campaign. It could be something that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, i.e. your automations, or even like, who gives a crap, with their BAU campaigns. And they're just making each one of them really, really count.
I mean, I totally agree with that. I used to work for Duluth Trading Company, for anybody that knows them. We could really tap into our copy, and I mean, our marketing was very tongue-in-cheek. And so even though the email program drove a lot of revenue, being able to send out some campaigns where the consumers were just looking for some jokes and different things like that. But Kath, to your point about, not everybody has budget for these types of things. I think one of the things that would always get me in trouble when I was on the agency side was the account directors and account people so much when I would talk about just building the foundation for email programs and talking about sunset policies and talking about deliverability and list cleansing and all of these things, making sure that your data is right. not as sexy as personalization, segmentation, and some of these other things you can invest in, but certainly during this time, very important for you to get back in touch, and to know your audience is very important too. A lot of people would ask for, when I was on the agency side, clients would ask for benchmarks and different things like that. I think probably all of us have talked about this at one point or another. Benchmarks are great. But don't base that on your audience. It's very important to know your audience and to always be testing. They're always going to be changing, especially during times like this. So I appreciate being able to do those A/B tests and to find out what tone works best with your consumers is, genius, and doesn't cost what it would to implement a new technology. So completely agree.
This is a
Really
very
nice
American.
example.
Go ahead, Tom.
There's a really nice example. One of our clients, My Jewelry, they did what they called a style profile test. So it's like, what sort of necklaces are you wearing at the moment? What type of rings do you like, etc. But actually asking it in a test format to their customers. I think, Jennifer, you touched on it. That's really kind of valuable zero-party data that they're collecting. And then they've then combined that with obviously the first-party data that they've already got to then make amazing recommendations for future campaigns. If you're combining that with an abandoned browse, similar to the example you spoke about, Kath, that's gold dust.
Yeah.
There's another client I worked with, which maybe isn't the kind of sexiest subject matter, but it was veterinary supplies. So if someone was looking at horseworming as a beautiful example, rather than sending here are the pills and the frequency or what have you, they sent blog content related to that. Their normal marketing emails would make 7p per message, and those ones had a £1 return, or maybe just over even, because it's actually relevant, engaging content based upon what you've been looking at, rather than just here's what you were looking at, come and buy it. And also Innocence movies are another one I've got to shout out, kind of similar to Who Gives a Crap. The language they use is just awesome. And you don't read their emails because you're even buying their products. They don't sell from them. It's all, in shops instead. But the brand is everything. And that's what kind of makes the difference. And that's why you're buying from them.
Yes.
I was just going to say, this is a very American analogy, but aim for singles and doubles. You don't need home runs. Because singles and doubles.
So to translate,
this is baseball.
Yeah, so I'll translate for you, Scott. Don't worry. So hit for ones and twos. You don't have to hit for six.
Right. Exactly. Like, it's very, like, you talk about innovation and people think, oh, innovation, we need a six. We need a home run. We need a touchdown for American football, whatever it is. Like, no, just keep the chains moving. Just keep it moving. Think small incremental growth with all of these things, because it adds up at the end of the year. You don't need to have, because what will happen is you may get lucky and hit a home run, and then strike out for the rest of the year, right? So
just start somewhere.
Just start somewhere. Yeah.
And as I coined this phrase years ago. Let's bring marketing back into email marketing. That's what it's all relying upon, is you being the marketer. And really calling upon your knowledge and your experience and your team's experience.
So that's actually a good segue to this next question. So Heather from AARP, hey Heather, how you doing? Has asked, is anyone changing email list hygiene rules? And Jennifer, you actually touched on that, to extend longer than say 12 months to 18 months due to recession. Stroke longer sales cycles. Let's explode that a little bit. Have best practices changed, or maybe not changed, but are some of the things that we've always held on to as best practice maybe need a bit of tweaking because we're in difficult economic times?
Wait,
I think one of the things. Sorry, guys. But I think one of the things that we have to remember, and actually I should have set up a poll. But everybody in the comments, just a yes or no, have you ever managed through a recession before? Because we have to remember the last recession was, 2008? Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of people who not managed through a recession. So what kind of practical tips can we give them? What do they need to change?
So I just want to do a little nod here too to the B2B audience in watching this, because we've been talking a lot about consumers and everything, and at the end of the day, I think even a B2B audience, they're still consuming your product, your goods, your offerings, right? So I still consider them being consumers. However, what we found when we went through COVID is we used to have that principle, because we're B2B obviously, being a boutique email marketing consultancy. What we did was we stopped forcing people to give us their business address, because not everyone had a business address to give to us. And this is so very true even here and now, with teams being laid off, and you can be having 6 weeks to 3 months to however long in between jobs and everything like that. That doesn't mean that from our perspective that they don't want to be keeping up to date with content and insights and everything on email marketing. So we have changed that. So it's not directly what you're talking about, but it is a little bit of this hygiene, changes. Start to, again, think about your recipients and sort of making sure you're making it easy for them as possible to be connecting with you.
Yeah, I would agree on that. I don't know that. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I was waiting my 2 beats, but that was a little bit longer than 2 beats, and I was multitasking. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yes, to Kath's point, I mean, one of the things, again, that I would take a look at during this time is, again, looking at your automations and looking at purchase cycle and things like that. And a lot of times, I mean, as a retailer, something you're trying to find out what that sweet spot is. Are people engaging after 6 months? Is it 12 months? Do you keep them on the list for 18 months? I would definitely take a look at that and give your consumers some grace and maybe amp up your re-engagement. One of the things I like to talk about is re-engagement series. One of the things that I see a lot of retailers doing wrong is their series just consist of a myriad of coupons that they're giving the consumer. You may get them to engage, but you're not understanding why they're disengaging in the first place. So trying to collect that information during this time from your consumers, maybe it is because they don't need any more of XYZ or funds are tight or whatever that is. But again, a good time to try and collect that type of information. But in terms of other best practices, and I would say testing is probably more important now than it was during the normal days. So understanding what type of language works well, like to Kath's point, where you're testing the language. It could also be subject lines. I know that we're not as reliant upon open rates necessarily so much anymore because of mail privacy protection, but I would definitely explode out your testing to try and understand your consumers as much as you can during this time.
Yeah, I think just to kind of add on sort of both of those points around testing and incentives, it's something that I worked with a past client on in terms of they had an abandoned cart series set up. And they had a 10%, whatever the incentive off was, in literally every abandoned cart they were sending out. And they had no idea if they needed to be giving that. That was just what they decided they were going to do. Particularly with the recession-focused theme at the moment, you're literally giving away money if you're doing that. When it came to them actually testing it, there was no difference in conversion from when they had the incentive there versus when they didn't. It was staggering how little difference it made. So they were like, right, great. Well, this is however many thousands of hundreds of pounds that we've suddenly saved just by turning off one thing. If you're then thinking about testing, okay, well, maybe on the second or third step of this series, if they haven't, bought, collect, engage, whatever previously, then let's think about testing it to a small subset of this group of people to see what difference it makes. That's just I'm always shocked when I see people doing that still, but it happens all the time.
Yeah.
I had a client that got to the point where they couldn't sell if they didn't offer a discount, and they couldn't offer a bigger discount because they were just above break even. Mm-hmm. And so it was shocking. They had taught people, we send emails every Friday. I'm not going to buy anything until I get the email on Friday because the email on Friday has got a huge discount in it. and they train their customers.
That's
So
the
we've got
problem
a
you run
couple
into when you
questions.
comp this and you comp that, and you have to comp whatever you did the year before. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Skip, before we jump to that question, this may cover a little bit there, but I think, and it's very odd for an email marketer to say this, but think beyond email. Become best friends with your web team. Become best friends with your analytics team. Think about customer performance and less about email performance, because going back to, I think Jen, you said at the top about like the brand, and Skip, like the branding effect of just being there. There's a lot of activity that happens just because you showed up that day, whether they open the email, whether they click through it or not. So you have to think both in terms of that last click attribution. I did a whole presentation on why last click sucks. I'm not going to get into that, but you have to think about it that way and go to your other teams and be like, you brought this person in, they got this stuff from us, from me, they converted at this rate. Those people converted at this rate. I don't care how they ultimately sold. We had a piece of that. Now there's tech out there that can help you track it. I don't think anybody's done it right yet. But you have to, like that, those are, especially in a recession, you have to get down to the person and how they react to the melange of things they see, because they don't just see email. They're likely seeing retargeting in Facebook and in a multitude of other channels. You have to think about that holistically, Kath. Holistically.
You bring up a really good point,
Scott.
Scott. Yeah, I know, exactly. Think beyond just email, and even within, if you're over push and SMS. But yes, it has to be about the consumer and meeting them where they want, instead of, I've seen so many times being at brands and then also on the agency side with brands, them trying to push their own agendas. That's where you're going to fail. Meet the consumers where they want. So yes, at the point where like everybody should just be happy because you're getting a sale. Who the hell cares where it came from? Excuse my language, but yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And once you get down to that individual level, you can start to build those individuals into cohorts and start to see how cohorts behave differently based on what parts of the melange they are interacting with. So your challenge for the rest of the day, everybody, is to use the word melange in at least one sentence. Thank you, Scott. But you touch on an interesting question. Now, this term has been used a couple of times on this webinar, and I don't know if holistic email marketing has some of the same rules. I don't know if anybody, you Americans, have heard about the controversy we've had over here with the BBC and impartiality. I am morally opposed to the phrase zero-party data, but for the purposes of this conversation, I'm happy. Well, I'm not happy to use it, but I will use it. So David wants to know about how would you approach collecting zero-party data when you've got, a huge list and a huge product range, and then Heather tacked on to that Jen inspired her to ask the question. I wonder if the change in cookie rules is driving this, i.e. expanding zero-stroke first-party data collection and keeping names on lists longer. So let's get into that topic, and of starting to collect, understand, analyze, and leverage the data that we're capturing from our customers.
I would say the first step, and this may seem funny, and I just talked about this a month ago at the ANA conference, is just ask. Just ask your consumers. You don't have to provide some type of promotion. It's as easy as asking. And I would also say, start taking a look at your data and where you might have some holes and some things that you are wanting to know about your consumers, and just ask them. It could be in an SMS. You can send it via email. You can have some sort of fun, interactive way to do this, but it's really just that easy. But make sure with whatever data you're collecting that you're going to use it in a relevant way. One of the examples that I like to use is, so when I was on the agency side, I had worked with Neutrogena, and then we'll take ASICS as an example. So when asking for birthday, for example, it would be important probably for Neutrogena to have my birth year because you're able to segment product, do different things based on that year. So of course, if I'm a teen, you're going to be sending acne prone things, whatever. You're my age, you're going to be sending wrinkle cream and all of this other stuff. Where at ASICS, the year does not matter to us or to them. So making sure that whatever you're asking for, that you're actually going to use it. I talked about big data versus small data at this conference. And so starting to think small, but certainly if you have gaps in something that you would like to know, just asking the consumers for that. Most likely they're going to end up giving that to you, knowing hopefully that you're going to use that information to make their experience more personalized to them.
Yeah. That's great, Jen. And at that same conference, I think keynote was with Chad White. And do you remember him saying, data, data, data? And he goes, we all want data, right? We're all walking around saying data, data, data.
Yes.
He said, I hate data. He said, what I want is insights, 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 right?
Absolutely.
And that's exactly it. We can have as much data as we want, we could collect this and we can collect this and everything. But if you're not going to use it and use it wisely to actually help them to achieve their objective, which then in turn helps you, don't bother with it, right? And so I just wrote an article, published it in Martech, just I think last week, and it was about this. So I was quoting Chad and everything. It was talking about sort of how we can be. We want the data so much, but we can also be. It can steer us wrong if we're reading it wrong, if we're interpreting it wrong, if we're actually putting our own biases into it and everything like that. And then also we have got the basic thing of informed data, that is the data that's given to us when we ask an explicit question, okay, can actually be misrepresenting who they are, because they're actually answering it from the person that they'd like to be, their ideal self, rather than their true self. Whereas watching what they click and everything is actually more likely to be accurate. So keep that in mind as well. And again, don't have to use every bit of data that you find. Just go and do some analysis, find out those insights, and then apply them accordingly.
And that's why it's important to take a look at that, the data that, or the insights that you're collecting when you're asking questions or those types of things, and then combining that with your transactional and your behavioral data. So I also talked about that too, where you need to look at the whole picture and not just one little piece of information, because that is where you can get into trouble by making assumptions.
Yeah. It's also so important that you with, who was that?
Go ahead, Adam.
Sorry. I was just going to say, it's also so important that you actually do something with the data. I think if somebody has spent the time to give it you, it's strange if you're asking for the information and then the customer doesn't see anything from it. I'm bringing it back to hospitality like I always do. But we did a pre-visit automation, which, going back to the automation piece of not trying to sell anything, was great. Here's a menu. This is what's happening in your local restaurant. And then we also gave the opportunity to reply. And unfortunately, we stopped doing it because people were replying and saying, it's a birthday, like a birthday cake. Loads of requests that were coming in, which was perfect, and it was hyper personalized from the manager of the venue that you're going to. The only problem was that they'd be really excited that they were going to have a birthday cake, and it was all going to be arranged, and everything was going to be great, and nothing would happen. So drawing back to having a massive amount of data is brilliant. It's what you then do with it that's the problem. So slightly different, because this is, it's a response to an email. But if we were to take that from a preference center, or we were to take that from something that was we were asking them to fill in a form or whatever it may be, it's brilliant, and they have these expectations set in their heads. But then if they arrive and it doesn't happen, or if there's no reason to have the data, it suddenly has a really negative impact on the whole process.
I think in that sense, keeping sign-up forms simple is crucial as well. There's far too many where they're asking for too many bits of information at that very first point of contact. All you need is the email address to start with. You can gain further data further on in the customer journey. I think people quite often make that mistake. And if you're using popovers, don't be annoying with them. It's really not hard to do one based upon actual engagement. I've looked at this particular product. It's in my basket. I'm now leaving the page. here's a reminder, this is still in your basket. You're not going to buy it now. Here's an opportunity to give us your email address. Come back, we'll send you a reminder to buy it later. That's so much more powerful than I've landed on a web page and within half a second there's a banner that's taken up the whole
that's
email
the
stream.
worst.
Worst thing ever.
It's really not hard. Obviously we can do that, but you don't need a bit of tech like us. There's so much kind of simpler things that can do the same thing as well. Just to kind of get step one right is crucial. And then, in recession-minded conversation, obviously, that we're all talking about at the minute, if you're putting off a customer right at that very first opportunity, they're gone. Like, brand is everything at the moment, like we were saying earlier. If you've put them off before they've even got their foot in the door, then what a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, because Tom, what you're talking about there is trust. And Adam, you're talking about trust as well. So trust at the very beginning. They don't trust you yet because they don't know you yet. So you need to earn their trust. And then, Adam, what you're saying is that if you're going to collect it, then they need to trust you that you're going to actually be delivering and helping them with that data, helping their experience, whatever. So, and this is crucial when it comes to the recession, because everyone is we're all fighting for the same small, tiny wallets, shrunk wallets, right? So how are we going to stand out from our competitors? By being trustworthy. That is a very, very big thing. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, trust
Part
fosters
of that trust
loyalty.
is,
Yep.
but part of that trust also, and nobody's really touched on it, so I'm going to jump in with this. Data has a shelf life. All data has a shelf life. So one of the ways to maintain trust is to keep asking. Like, don't ask every day, but when it's likely that something may have changed, because it changed for them. And if you don't recognize that it changed and you get it wrong, you can erode that trust just like that.
And ask in different ways too. Don't just always send an email asking for those things. Try and do it in different ways. Yeah.
Don't do it all the time. Don't do it all at once.
Yes.
Make it like a conversation. Sort of like how you get information from somebody new when you meet them. Like, nobody wants to meet that. We've all met that person at a party who just asks a load of questions. And you're like an hour and a half in, and you're like, why am I telling this complete stranger my waist size? You don't need to know that. That's only happened to me once. And Scott bought me a lovely present from it, so it's okay. Right. So we are getting towards the bottom of the half hour. So I kind of want to wrap up with this. It's a tough time for everybody, and people are struggling. But we as marketers, we have a responsibility to sell our wares. How do you find that right balance between selling your wares and you're communicating with someone who's possibly their choices are heating or eating?
I would say maybe going back to what Kath just talked about a little bit and putting the marketing back into email marketing and being empathetic is some retailers you see during holiday or Mother's Day or Father's Day put something out there and ask if they just want to put their email on pause during this time. So putting a lifeline out there and like, we're not going to unsubscribe you, but understanding that this may be a difficult time. Are there certain things you want to hear about? Do you want to take a pause? Kind of taking a look at that, like some retailers have done during some of these other holidays. And then, once things kind of turn around, reach out and say, just checking, or something like that, or we're going to be resuming email soon. But I would say to be empathetic about it and to be a human to another human instead of a corporation to a vast, number of subscribers on your email list.
Well, I package it. I package it all under helpful marketing. Just ask yourself, is this helping them, right? Could this potentially be helping them? And again, the only way you can be helping them is because you're actually focusing on their needs, on their goals, on their objectives, right? Why did they subscribe to you in the first place? What do they want to hear from you? And so you're answering it from that perspective. So as long as you're doing that, then the rest is up to them, whether they choose to ignore or read or anything like that, or even action. That'll be up to them. But you're doing the best job that you can do under these circumstances. You're doing what you're meant to be doing, and anything like we love customer service. People love being helped. Right? So have a store manager come in and say, oh, that dress looks lovely on you. How can I help you? Oh, look, you've got a little 2-year-old and we've got a perfect little dress for her. All the rest of it. That is what people love because it makes their lives easier and it helps with their experience. So that's all we have to do. And so helpful marketing, everything can be packaged under that, personalization, tone of voice, everything. It's just we have to start at the right place in the first place, and that's with the customer.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to wrap up. I just quick little anecdote from me. I saw a great thing during COVID, and I'm not sure it'd be appropriate now, but it would be it was an interesting idea. It was a travel company that said, "You can't travel. We're not going to try to sell you travel. We're just going to produce all this content about cool places so you can sit in your lounge and look at pretty pictures and videos of where you could be if you were allowed to be anywhere." And at first I saw that and I'm like, well, that's a bit harsh. But then I was like, oh, it's really quite good. I'm really quite enjoying that. Oh, I could be at the beach. Oh, mountains. I love mountains. And I ended up with a list of all these places I wanted to go. So
some sticky
they
content.
actually did sell me. Yeah.
Keeping top of mind. Yes.
Yeah, really clever.
Alrighty. So, like I said, we're getting to the bottom of the hour, and that's about all the time for today. And I'm trying to do two things at once. And as we all know, I can't multitask. But here we go. So you've been great actually today as a group participating in the chat. The chat's been really lively, really active. Let us know what you thought. Give us some feedback in the chat. We love to hear what you think. Also, please join me in giving a big thanks to our platinum sponsor, RPE Origin, and to Tom, one of our brilliant speakers today, and his organization, Bloomreach. Of course, a tremendous thank you to all of our panelists for participating today. Some brilliant insights, some great banter and conversation. Hope you enjoyed that. But most of all, I want to thank you for spending your time with us today. We know you've got a lot of choices and you could be anywhere, and you chose to spend your afternoon with us. So like I said, we will be back next month. Until then, keep an eye out for the promo for that. Register when it comes out. But until then, be safe and make good choices.